भर्गोदेवस्सुवः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो न प्रचोदयात्। ॐ भूर्भुवस्सुवः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो न प्रचोदयात्। ॐ भूर्भुवस्सुवः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो न प्रचोदयात्। ॐ भूर्भुवस्सुवः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो न प्रचोदयात्। ॐ भूर्भुवस्सुवः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो न प्रचोदयात्। ॐ भूर्भुवस्सुवः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो न प्रचोदयात्। ॐ भूर्भुवस्सुवः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो न प्रचोदयात्। ॐ भूर्भुवस्सुवः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो न प्रचोदयात्। ॐ भूर्भुवस्सुवः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो न प्रचोदयात्। ॐ भूर्भुवस्सुवः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो न प्रचोदयात्। Yeah, exactly. No, it's better. Palangi is here. Hi. Hi. Good morning. How are you? Lovely to see you. Okay. Oh, top of the world. What a nice thing to say. Hi, Paragi. How are you? Lovely to see you. Hi. This is Dr. Padam. She's just joining the class. This is Paragi. This is Preeti. This is Nirmala. Rita, you met already.
I think she was to come last week itself.
Yes.
I'll add her number in my...
Yeah, please add in the chat. Yeah.
So when you start...
With your shawl and all.
And that's why I said, you want to sit somewhere, now you put this off, no? Because nobody wants here, no?
Oh my God.
I know, but she is very...
Is there no AC? I can't
She's a very...
coming here. You sit here. I can't concentrate on the
Yeah, I
lecture.
can't sit down here.
Huh? You want to sit here? I'll go there.
No, I can't sit in any of these sofas.
You want to sit here?
No, I will sit there. That's my
Let's have a
chair.
final place over there.
I'll go there. Listen, you need to be here, right?
Once I start, then I'll go there. There won't be any changes.
Okay.
Once I start, you don't have to stop or something.
No. But this is strange. I'm just nobody is in front. This is doesn't make sense. Yeah, so you sit there. Ah.
This one will come now, Namrata and...
I need to get a pillow otherwise.
But Namrata will come now?
Namrata may come. Yes.
That is my problem.
Namrata is coming. Yeah. Okay.
My only problem is I can't sit in
You
there
can't.
and go back.
Oh, okay.
I don't mind coming there if you switch off face.
Okay, try. Yeah.
Yeah, you'll sit there.
Try if you wish.
Lovely.
Chalo.
Okay, good. Yeah, no, it's much better because then I need somebody in front. Otherwise, I can't just talk empty to people, you know. Yeah.
Only my problem
Hi. Oh, yeah. Oh,
Since I was like a baby.
really? Oh my God. So I just. Okay, good. So now. Okay, okay, okay. So start.
Say start.
Yeah, we'll start.
So we couldn't make it that way.
Oh, I know.
What is the college admission?
Oh. Oh. Oh.
I was supposed to join them at
Yeah, I know. That's what Rita,
Counselor
this
took me
Rita
till
said.
6:30.
Oh, so then. Oh. Oh, to NYU. Oh, wow. Good, good, good.
So much is to be done, no?
Okay.
I'll try. I hope this also.
ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः Okay, so last time we saw that what is one, you need maturity in order to understand the big picture that Vedanta is talking about. It doesn't just happen like that. And one of the indicators of maturity is what we saw, nirvairaha sarva bhuteshu. Okay, so that means you are not carrying any resentment towards anybody in this world. Okay, so that means your mind is free from carrying people and situations. Generally, as a Vedanta teacher, I have seen a lot that, you know, some events or some people, some events kind of people, way after they have already passed, people kind of keep replaying in their mind. And because of that replay, it's not just an event, it is what all the emotions and all the hurt, all the people who are involved in those events, they carry with you, right? So that means it's almost like a tape that you keep on playing within you, way past that event has already happened. And the event has happened, you may or may not have dealt with it. Some people have not dealt with it, so therefore it stays with them. Some people may have done whatever they had to do, but still it keeps playing. And along with it, all the people who were involved and all the hurt that you got and all the sadness and all the anger, it keeps playing in their mind. Okay? And what is the quality of your life if your mind is preoccupied with all the hurt, sadness, anger, unresolved issues, carrying people in your mind and all the hurt that they have caused you? Is your mind free to just do what needs to be done? What is the quality of mind which is carrying all that within oneself? Disturbed. Cluttered up, disturbed mind, right? And that mind, what can it do? Actually, it's very interesting because, you know, that mind is the mind which reassesses fresh situation. And what is your ability to assess those situations accurately when you are loaded with all those things? There is no clarity. And then you act based on your own projections onto that present situation. What happens is, what is going to be your assessment?
You still carry on that same thing.
You project very much onto the present situation, and then your assessment is wrong. How is going to be your response to that situation? So that means, please understand.
It's completely tainted then.
Exactly. The response is tainted. That means what happens is you further entangle. It's not that you keep your confusion constant. If you don't deal with it, you keep on loading it further and further and make your whole being more distorted and more disturbed. You see that? Initially you carry only unresolved issues with you, but they don't just remain constant, because they influence the present assessment and present response. So you keep on magnifying, you multiplying your distortions. So at most of the human beings are so entangled because there is no clarity and there is so much disturbance of all these unresolved issues, and every small situation can trigger all huge responses and huge interpretations because there are just things which are unresolved. Okay, so now people are very simplistic in how they deal with it, and people give you advice. What is the advice they give you? Forget it, forgive, right? Forget, forgive. It's all sounds very easy, but is it possible? Not.
We keep saying we forgive, but again that situation keeps coming to our mind.
Exactly.
Somewhere we forgive, but the other person
Still carries. Absolutely.
everything in their
Absolutely. Right? So therefore, one good thing about Vedanta is it doesn't give you an advice like that. Because if it's very easy to give an advice like that and nothing gets accomplished. Sounds good, sounds beautiful, when I say
Accept it and move on maybe.
no. So this is why we analyze. We stay with those things and we analyze. This is what gives you the capacity to undo. First of all, understand how your mind works, and secondly, undo the distortions. Because unless you stay with it and analyze, no amount of advice is going to help. Okay? So therefore, the whole approach of Vedanta is moving away from advice and going into the analysis. Get into that mind and see where are the distortions. And if there are distortions, how you can undo those distortions.
Approach that person and say,
Okay, so now one of the ways, now there are many different ways and there is no such thing as this is the only response. Okay, there are many ways that one can deal with it, so one has to help themselves and one has to use one's intelligence to say, in this given situation, what is appropriate. Okay, so we started last time by saying one of the ways to deal with resentment is, as Preeti said, to communicate. Okay, because many times I have seen that when you most of these situations which create some anger or sadness or some one kind of a thing is there are people involved. And what has happened is that person has caused you, said something or done something which has caused you a lot of pain, for example. Okay. Now, most of the time what happens is people say, oh, but if I say anything to that person will flare up. So what do? You choose not to say anything. You suppress. Right? Now, the minute you suppress, you think that you have avoided a conflict. Right? Why do you suppress? You suppress because you don't want it to escalate into a huge conflict. Right? Have you really avoided a conflict? Because what has happened is you have taken it and you have not given it an expression. The minute you have not given it an expression and it stays with you, what happens? Resentment. That resentment is something which is inevitable, right? It's psychological order. And that will come out in either some kind of a, displeasure. It's like a non-verbal communication. Some distortion in your behavior towards that person. Non-verbal communication. Right? Or it you suppress, and one day that person does or says something small, and then what? You flare up. It is all like pressure cooker, you just kind of, everything is suppressed, and then it comes out towards either that person, or if you feel that you are not powerful vis-a-vis that person, it will come out against whom? Another person towards whom you feel that you have power, and then you just flare up. So that means repressing or suppressing emotion is not at all an right, appropriate response. So therefore, one of the ways, please understand, right? One of the ways is to say, hey, this slight discomfort that I may have to go through by talking that issue out, okay, and solving it will actually save me from so many future blow-ups that actually are much more in magnitude. Okay, forget it. Stop, because it's distracting me. Stop. Okay. Right? It will actually take me from so much distortion and so much pain in the future. Even if it creates a little discomfort, I can talk about it. Deal with issues then and there. This fear of dealing with things and communicating causes a big pile-up. Which then becomes out of control. Okay? So then you can say, I am going to communicate my displeasure. Okay? But how you communicate is something which is extremely important. Generally what happens is that when you communicate, what do? You start blaming. You're like that, you did this to me, and you're on a blame mode. How do you think is the person going to respond to you when you start blaming the person? It's going to be like that. The person is going to be defensive. It will again tell you, hey, but you are like that and you are like that, and then there is no solution, right? So that means the rule of communication is, first wait till you have a certain amount of composure. Okay? Don't just start talking when you are when you have this heart palpitation and you are stressed and all. You can recognize when you have lost that mental balance, right? So regain that little amount by breathing, just cooling down or whatever, but don't wait for too long to talk about it. Okay? But when you talk about it, you don't don't be on a blaming mode, you talk about your feelings. Okay? Very, very important. You tell this, something disturbed me. That's very different from saying you're like that. And I took it like that, and I interpreted it like that, and that's what caused me pain. Okay? Here you're talking about yourself. Nobody can deny what you felt and what you thought. Our teacher used to say there is 100% truth when you talk about yourself, right? When you are making a judgment about somebody else, you could be wrong, because you may be interpreting quite different from what the intention of the other person was. But when you are talking about I felt hurt, there is 100% truth in it. That I felt sad, and this is how I saw the situation. I could be wrong. You can in fact even add that. I could be wrong, but this is how I saw it. When you do that, what are you? You are opening up for an honest conversation. Okay, the person has a capacity, has an opportunity to clarify what his or her own intention was. Right? So you open a dialogue. You open a dialogue where you are stating what you're feeling, and you're also then giving the other person an opportunity to express what they felt or what they had in mind, and then communicate. Communication is something that we have just not learned how to honestly communicate. And a lot of our pile up, every situation which is difficult, our whole response is to avoid it. Avoid talking about it. And by avoiding to talk about it, we create distortions. Okay, how to then listen to the other person, and when you're listening to the other person, try to listen, not like by the time that person is responding, you are already thinking about, now how am I going to counter that and what is going to be my response. You are not listening, because you're already making up, you're so busy to, so that communication is something which is that there is a very beautiful book called Non-Violent Communication. Learn to communicate, because communication is something that we have not learned how. When it's easy topics, fun topics, we know how to communicate. But when there are difficult topics, we have not learned how to communicate. We try to dodge it. By just kind of bypass it. Bypassing is not at all a solution. Okay, so that having and overcoming that fear. Just a few days ago, I met somebody who had so much fear because that the way the whole relationship has evolved, with her spouse, is that every time she wants to say something, the spouse kind of uses the anger to shut that person up. So over the period, what has happened is that person has lost ability to just speak up. And imagine you are living in a home where you are constantly afraid to speak up. Just simple things, you lose confidence to just say what you think. Okay, so that is something that I said, what are you afraid of? What is the maximum that can happen? What?
Leave you, divorce.
Exactly. What else? And and I said, okay, that's a maximum that can happen. Think about it, really.
You obviously want to live with someone anyway, right?
Exactly. I said, if that is the worst case scenario, that it will end in a divorce, right? Now you really think that now, do I want to live the rest of my life under constant fear of speaking up, or I just the worst case scenario is I'm separate and I have my independence? What is better? Like Namrata is saying, which one is better? Tell me. To get your little freedom, to get that freedom. So then, what is at stake? Why are you so afraid of speaking up? So that fear, that is that person's behavior, is that person's problem. But the fear that you have created for yourself is whose problem? Yours. If you continue to be under that huge fear, there is nobody who can help yourself. Nobody who can help you. Nobody can help you. You just have to overcome that little fear. But in a very subtle way. Not in this aggressive way that now I have no fear, so I'm going to show, and then you are just kind of trying to settle all the accounts of all the years by being rude. I'm not saying that at all. You have to be intelligent. That one little step to overcome that fear and begin to state things honestly, but trying to be non-violent. Okay? By stating what you have to state. saying what you have to say. Pray. In fact, I have another friend who's a beautiful, she says, my God, I have this fear, and before I begin, say, okay, now I'm going to start a conversation, I pray and I said, please let the right words come. Fair enough. Lovely. Let that person receive it with a certain amount of composure. Lovely. Because there is a fear, you are not trying to push it aside, you are actually you're acknowledging that fear, but you are not going to be restricted by that fear. You are making that one little step to overcome that fear, and in spite of there being fear, you are going to choose to do things differently and asking for help from the universe to enable you to do that. Make that little step forward. And when you do that, as I said, as a rule, speak about yourself. Don't blame the other person. Say what you feel, because there is 100% truth. And engage in a dialogue. You will see, because every human being, neurologically, I'm not talking about, there is something called mirror neurons, like last time I said. Everybody is given the capacity to empathize. Because nobody really, unless there is distortion is so much, nobody wants to cause hurt to somebody, really. And nobody wants to give pain to other people. Right? So then, if you just talk about your pain and the person is more or less intact, the person understands. The person may not admit immediately, but the person has the capacity to understand that, hey, I am causing pain, my behavior is causing pain. And even if that person doesn't admit at that given point in time, will think about it. Will think about it. There is no way a normal human mind will think about it. Okay, and therefore you trigger that whole thing where people are beginning to think about their behaviors and how much pain it is causing. And if they in return tell you how much pain you have caused to them, right? Unaware, then you also need to think about it, right? Because when our whole the thing is, I'm a victim and this person is bad, and the other person feels the same with reference to you.
It's two hands to clap.
Yeah. So that means communication means not only you give the right inputs to the other person and tell them what you think, which will hopefully make the other person think about one's behavior, but when the other person responds and gives his or her feedback about you, you also have to be equally available to think about your responses. Because you may not even have thought about, what you have done, which could have caused a lot of pain to somebody else. Okay, this is how you really begin to grow, where you become self-reflective, right? In seeing, but hey, my God, this is how I think I'm behaving, but how is it coming across to somebody else, my behavior, right? And what pain it is causing somebody else. But you also begin to take care of the fears that you have within you, which is not enabling you to give right feedback to different people who are involved in your life. That little step of communication is something which is non-negotiable. If you want to grow, you have to overcome this fear and this status quo of, you're viewing the world as being a victim of circumstances. You have to help yourself. And part of helping yourself is giving the right feedback to the other person and also seeing what you are doing. Where is your share of responsibility in that given situation? There is no situation where you have zero responsibility and the other person has 100% responsibility. There is no situation. Even the fact that you let them shout and then be passive, that is your responsibility. That you are letting it happen is your responsibility. Okay, so there is a time that is one of the ways, and one of the very important ways. Okay, now I see all these people talking about application to the US and all, and now it has become like a big business. I see everybody goes to this council, people are consultants and they tell you what to write in the essays and all. In our days we just got into all these universities without any of these consultants and all. We were just writing essays. So one of my friends was applying to Wharton School, and she wrote an essay, and I still think about it. It was a brilliant essay, right? And she didn't need any consultant. So one of the questions at the Wharton Business School was, what do you think is the biggest problem in this world right now? They are very clever. They don't ask for some, the show. They ask for things. They want to get into your mind and see how you are thinking. And it's got nothing to do with business. And my friend wrote a beautiful thing. Generally, what do you think? What would people write about? Poverty, hunger, corruption. Right? So this is something that this is a normal response.
Yeah, country to country power games.
Exactly.
All boils down to communication.
She wrote that the greatest problem is communication failure. Behind all these problems, right? Power game. What is a power game? Whether it is between two individuals or two countries. What? Inability to communicate and see each other's standpoint. Really, because there are no countries without people. We give name, there are country, there is power, but power game is among whom? People. Is always people related. And if I find myself in a position of power vis-a-vis somebody, and if I'm indifferent or if I'm exploitative towards the person who has less power compared to me, what is this? There is this whole communication problem where I get into a comfort zone where I can start abusing the other person, and the other person is going to feel dissatisfied. Now you take this model, and then that person is going to come back to me in one way or the other, non-cooperation in some way or the other, which is then going to bring what? Discomfort to myself. Now you bring that particular thing and you put it in a housewife dealing with a servant. Same. You put it in a corporate level, a CEO dealing with subordinates. Same. You put with reference to so-called powerful country dealing with a less powerful country. Everywhere it's the same pattern. It just gets transposed in different situations. Then we think that they are all technical problems, but actually they are all problems of communication. If I'm in a position of power vis-a-vis somebody, my communication, if it is putting that person down and exploiting that person, there is a huge communication failure. Home relationship. I find myself, if there is a home where a husband feels powerful because that husband is an earning member and puts the wife down, same. Same scenario. It's a power which leads to communication failure. When you find that you are in your mind, that you are powerful vis-a-vis somebody, there is a distortion in that communication that happens because you want to control the person, you want to manipulate the person, you want that person to be totally obedient. and the other person feels dissatisfied. And that dissatisfaction, even if the person doesn't express, is going to come out, and that is also going to then what? Come back to you in some way or the other. So there is just dissatisfaction all around, because the other person is dissatisfied, which comes back to you. Then you again use your position of power to further put that person down. The person further puts what? Feels sad. It again, this is how we multiply our dissatisfaction. The whole world is just full of all these frustrations, unresolved issues. So therefore she says all these technical problems that we think, they all emerge from failure of communication. She got into Wharton School. Think about things. We have become so removed from really having that sensitivity and thinking about things, and more aid to create all these artificial profiles to get into these best schools. We've lost touch with reality. So therefore it's extremely important, if you want to do one service to your kids, make them think about things, fundamental things, because that's what you need in life. We only get technical knowledge, we have no idea. My husband teaches in MBA school philosophy, spirituality, and all these guys are techies. They know that they can mathematics, they are really good. They all went to engineering school, so they know. But he asks them simple questions, what do you want to be? Then they say, I want to be a CEO. But CEO is just a name. What do you want to do after being like CEO? They have no vision beyond that.
Sometimes simple things are the most difficult.
Exactly. He says it's amazing how people are just not in touch with themselves. And the more and more you're not in touch with yourself, more and more what? There is suffering. Because the whole universe wants you to be in touch with yourself. Every situation that comes in front of you is giving you an opportunity to be in touch with yourself. But what do? You just waste away that opportunity by what? Blaming, angry, sadness, and all kinds of confusion. And it's amazing, Dr. Padam was saying that how much, she's a doctor, and how much of the patient, how much of this it's all about that. Okay, so nirvairaha.
Pent-up anger, frustration sometimes manifest on a physical level.
Yeah.
With somewhat the weak link which one has. That's what I...
Absolutely.
Everyone has some weakness in the body and manifests there. And many times it's kind of psychosomatic also.
Absolutely. As I told you, I think in this class I told you, my uncle was a psychiatrist, and he started the Department of Psychiatry in Bombay at, I think, KEM Hospital. So, and then his son is a psychiatrist, and his son, so there are 3 generations of psychiatrists. Okay, so once my aunt met him and said, the middle one, and he said, now how you have 3 generations of psychiatry experts, and so how do you see that it is evolving? This person answered that when my father started it, okay, everybody thought that psychiatry is only for people who are mad, like people who are like bonkers and they have like completely abnormal behavior and all that, right? And he says, now when my son, his son is practicing at Harvard, right? And he says that now as everything about you is related to how you're thinking. It's such an integral part of your attitudes, your understanding of the world is such an integral part of what? How you're going to be, what is going to be your mental makeup, what is going to be your self-image, how much suffering or non-suffering you have. The whole thing is about what you understand of life and how you respond and what are your attitudes. And really, Vedanta helps you not in a superficial self-help manner, at a very fundamental level. So fundamental, it's just amazing. All these entanglement, it just enables you to very delicately undo all of that. Without advices, without, just stay with facts and see, oh my God, what happens? Then you begin to undo all of that. Delicately refine, with refined, appropriate responses. No rules. Oh, I have to be like, no. Just be intelligent and just see where the distortions are and undo the distortions. Okay, so now that is only one of the methods to communicate. Imagine there are so many people who you are carrying within you, and let's say they have passed away. Is there any opportunity for you to communicate with them? So, for example, let's say, that I felt that my grandfather did something to me, which is I'm still carrying that thing. Now my grandfather is long gone. So, do I have an opportunity to communicate with him in person? No. Sometimes there is a situation, as somebody, Nirmala, was saying, that even in order for me to engage in a reasonable conversation with somebody, that other person has to be available in some way, right? Now imagine that person is just psychologically not prepared to engage in a conversation. So that means you also have to recognize that one of the most important ways is to communicate, but that given method may not always be available. Right? If it is not always available, what do you do? What do you do? Either because those people are not physically present right now to settle accounts with, right? Or that person is just emotionally not available. Like you have even a live grandfather who is like living from that pattern. Yeah, exactly. And then that pattern, you are not going to, okay, grandpa, I want to talk about it. Sometimes it's not possible. What do you do then? Think. That was your homework. You had to think. What do you do?
You imagine, I'm just with hypothetical
yes.
answer, that I imagine that person to be in front of me.
Okay.
And whatever I have to state objectively without blaming, I state and imagine that person has kind of, either I have forgiven or that person has.
Let's not use the word forgiven, state, because it's all here.
Yeah,
so you need.
Whatever I have taken out all my pent up frustration or whatever the emotions which were kind of bottled up, which were creating a distortion, I just kind of bring them out like a bottle of soda, and it's kind of gone, and I visualize it being released and gone, kind of a thing. So
Okay.
In these management classes also they make you do it. That the
Role
person is
plays.
in front of you and then you just vent out your
Exactly.
feelings and
There is
say
this.
all what you want to say and then all that.
There is this whole amazing technique that this US people have come up with, and this is all, either as Paragi says, that there is nobody in front and you just imagine that person and say whatever you have to say.
In the gestural therapy, that open chair, they do that it will be the person and it will be the other person and you change.
And then you change. That is a lovely method, right? That's a lovely method because, see, this is a very nice method. What Namrata is saying is, you play both roles. You play the role of a person who is stating what you have to state, but you also play the role of the person who is what? Listening to you. By doing that, what are you actually doing?
You are understanding the other person.
Excellent. Right? You're also getting into the mind of the other person and say now what that person could also be thinking and how that person could be responding. That's a brilliant way, because generally we are only used to what? Thinking about our own standpoint. Here you are cultivating that capacity to think from the other person's standpoint. So you are playing both roles.
Only understand.
Your role,
You may just want, you may portray what you want to happen also.
but that's okay. But you get that, the mind is evolved. I mean, you're using that thing for whatever. Initially, it may be not so, it's skewed to your own, what you want to hear, right? But even then, you are cultivating one very important skill, which is getting into the other person's shoes and seeing the situation from other standpoint. Even though it may not be totally accurate, you may still be, that is all about our expansion. Okay, that is a very nice way of not keeping it within you. These are all the different techniques. Please understand, and you have to help yourself to these techniques. Things will not get resolved. Okay, that is seeing from your own standpoint and seeing from somebody else's standpoint. Okay, other thing which they do is role plays. Right? You play that role, and you will be surprised. So many people get well by just saying out, and actually it's amazing what they hear from the other person, and what they hear from that other live person is something which does a huge click. I've heard people saying that. Okay, where you enact not with that person but with somebody else, but there is no choice but to deal with it. If it is bundled up. Okay, so these are the three things we came up with. What is the fourth thing?
Which are the three things?
What are the three things? The first is
Is to
communicate.
Communicate.
Second is what you said.
Is the other person, with the other person.
You just imagine the person, visualize the
First is
person
actual
and talk.
communicate, second is the visualize, third is the role play.
The third is what she's saying
play the
is
role
that
of both.
you do visualize and you play the both roles. And the fourth is what role play.
But then what is the Freud has something like transference of dystrophy, where he plays the person,
What
like
is
you play
the
the
third and fourth
person
then?
who's done him harm, and you see what you like. Suppose say I see my father, I have something with my father, and you play the role of my father, where I keep saying what I am against. And so this gets the person basically gets out of this thing of that, whatever he holds against his father,
Right.
and he's playing that.
Just saying out what you
Exactly. See, saying it out and not keeping it within you, doing something with it in a proper manner, is very, very important. Very, because otherwise we keep on holding, and there is just you don't get hold of. You not only you don't get rid of it, but you keep on loading it further, and you multiply it, and it becomes just totally overwhelming. And then you feel that, you have to go to spiritual class, and spiritual classes are all meant to be just kind of, you have to forgive everyone. It doesn't help you in any way. All superficial advices. You have to be loving towards everyone, compassion. But all these things of anger and pain and all, just by giving you this, be loving and all, it's not going to go. You need to do something very constructive.
What if you have a question of why?
Okay, very good.
You see, a why is very important.
Excellent. Right? So that means first you have to express what you have to say. But now let's see first thing, and then I will answer this question. It's a very important question. Why? Right? Why of what? Why it means why this happened to me?
No, why it happened to me, no.
No.
But why, like if someone's behaved badly with me, very, very badly, and that person is dead and gone.
Yeah.
I'm holding resentment, I'm holding in anger, sadness, whatever, grief.
Yes.
So I don't play, and but I still don't get that reason, isn't it? I still don't, that why is in my mind. How do I get into the skin and the bones of the person who's dead, who's gone, or a person who's not open to listening? Okay, a relationship that's gone by, and the person is not open to listening. But what was the reason why he behaved like that?
What was the reason why he behaved like
why
that?
In every situation,
Yeah.
there's a big why, isn't it?
So big why is with reference to why that person did what that person did, right? So that we will see, right?
Could it be that for your personal involvement, you were supposed to play and experience that in your lifetime?
Okay, now that is okay. We will talk about it. We will talk about it because we will talk about it. Okay, let's first see what are the things that you can do to get out. Then we will answer this question, right?
I think I have a question that you said 4 things. One was the actual communication. Second was the visualization.
The visualization had 2 parts. One is you just say what you have to say. The second part is you also take that is the third one. You take the position of the other person. So say that taking the position of that other person may give you some answers into why.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? Because you are kind of also taking that the person is responding, right?
That person must have got a lot of suppressed feeling which is taking out on me.
Yeah, so it may answer some of these things, the complexity of, that 2 standpoints are involved.
Yeah, because what I feel is okay, I have resentment, I have anger, I have all these feelings, so I'm talking about it in a communicative, in a positive attitude. All that is perfect, it's good. I'm not carrying the load, but I have a question mark.
Yes, true, very true. What is then the fourth one is that you do role plays, right?
See, third is fourth is the same.
No. Role play there are people involved. There are, like you and I are playing a role. Here is imaginary.
Okay.
The actual role plays.
Suppose I have resentment towards someone, but I request him to play.
Yeah, exactly,
Like that.
exactly.
Okay.
So that means it's an enactment. Okay. Now the other thing, which is an extremely important tool, which is to writing it out. Because at times what happens is our teacher used to make us all do that. Because when you write out, when you speak to somebody, you have to be very careful about what you say, how you say. In writing, you can actually start by showing all your anger. Really, you don't have to filter anything. You can give galis, you can just do whatever, because that's how you really feel. There is no, oh my God, is it appropriate or is it not appropriate? You're just unloading. That unloading without any censor
Causing harm.
or causing harm. Right? And he says, actually it is amazing, because when you start unloading, you start with one thing and so many other related things that are not even actively in your mind, they'll all start coming. And you can write.
Keeps decreasing.
And it keeps increasing. And then you said, oh my God, what all I have been carrying in my mind, the connections within connections within connections. It is so revealing how much some things, a little surface is known to us. A huge is like an iceberg. You start here and how much is there that you are not even aware of. It will all start coming out. Okay, and you do it because you have to. There is no other way. You have to get it out. Then what our teacher used to say, once you have written it, what you do is you read it. Okay, now what is inside has become what? Outside. And you are who? you're the observer of all these drama. You have created a cognitive distance between all the experiences which are part of your memory and you, the observer, who's taking care, who's observing all the things which are stored in your memory. Before, there was no cognitive distance between all the memory and you. Now, all these things become what? An object that you can observe. And who are you? Yeah, you're the witness now.
You can be more aware.
And that witness is something which is already free from what? All these different experiences which are stored in your memory. Okay? That gives a huge cognitive distance.
Cognitive distance.
Cognitive distance means there is no physical distance, but there is a cognitive distance that I am free from all the different experiences that come and go. I'm the observer.
What I'm going to say, I have noticed, I write something down.
Yes.
After a month,
Yes.
like I said, a lot of it has disappeared.
Yes.
So it's all that what you imagined
Exactly.
was not necessarily true once you reflected on it.
Absolutely. Right? So therefore, it becomes as something which you have observed, right? And it's something which is there. And what do you do after that? Tear it. Tear it off. Burn it off. Because before it was all inside, all jumbled and all. What happened? You took it out. Without sense. Say whatever. Like sometimes our teacher used to say, this is all too civil. When you want to write, just write. You're angry means, you say. Right? Because we only operate from our conscious mind, where all these problems lie in the unconscious, if you know a little bit psychology, right? And they keep coming out. So you just take it out and then you say, okay, now that has come out, you have seen it, you have created that cognitive distance, and then you destroy it. Nobody has to know about it, nobody has to see it, nobody has to what? And you will see how much release you will have. This is just, we've all done it. And how much of your emotions, there are times when you are writing, you cry. There are times that you feel angry, because you relive that whole thing and without any censor. Okay. Now, so these are all the different techniques. And you have to help yourself to one or the other depending upon, there is no rule that you only have to do this or you have to do this, you have to do all, or you have to select one at a time. Okay. So these are things that you can't bypass to get people out and the resentment out. Now the second question, as Dr. Padam asked, there is this whole big question of why. Okay, so that means you want to somehow understand why that person did what that person did to me, right? And that is something that, how could he do this to me? Why? Right? Now, how do you answer that question? Psychology has done a big they have understood human mind, but they have partially tried to answer this question, why that person did, right? The minute you come and you talk about whatever problem you have, they know exactly, right, where you are coming from. What is the type within the so-called distortion? What is the type of distortion that you are carrying? So the minute you describe the distortion of that other person, they have a good idea as to why that person was doing what that person was doing. Okay, many times you see now, and it's a very common thing, that the people who are criminals, right, why they are criminals today? Because they themselves were victims of somebody else's crime when they were a child. And that sometimes the crime was so that they were subjected to when they were a child was just so big that it created such distortion that they have become who they have become. Okay, and you see it all that, that now everybody understands. I had a case which I keep talking about, that a woman was abused by her boyfriend. physically abused by her boyfriend. And in fact, what happened is after every abuse, he would go back to her and start crying and said, I'm so sorry, I did this to you, right? And in fact, my parents, I grew up in a situation where my father was abusing my mother. So as a child, it was all too traumatic, and I'm trying to do something about it, and I'm trying to change my behavior. But if you leave me, I'll be destroyed. So you have to help me to change. So that means this why he himself was answering. Right? He was saying, I am abusive to you, but why am I abusive to you?
Justifying?
So exactly, please understand how lives are entangled. He was not only justifying it, but he was then using that information of why to keep her in that relationship, because she felt responsible. She said, oh my God, look at, he's doing this helplessly because he himself had this trauma as a child. Now how can I leave him? Because if I leave him, because he himself used to say, if you leave me, I'm trying to change, but if you leave me, I'll be destroyed.
So you bear with me.
So you bear with me.
Emotional blackmail.
Sorry?
That's emotional blackmail.
Exactly. This is emotional blackmail. And what did she do? Poor girl. She stayed. And did she help him change? No. After 3 years, it became so bad, she had to call the police. She was in Boston, so she had to call the police, and because the abuse became so bad. Okay. So this question of why, psychology has kind of understood in some way that in fact all of us behave the way we do because of some past causes. Okay. Now those causes some are traceable. What does psychology trace? From the time of the childhood. My experiences, what I have gone through, what impressions it has left on me, and if I don't deal with them, this is how I will behave helplessly. Okay. Psychology also has given us a lot of understanding that if you grow up in a family where husband and wife are constantly fighting, as a child you are affected. Whether those fights are very overt fights where they fight in front of you, or they close the doors and fight, the kids know it. And when actually what is very interesting is when they know it, they know it, and they are never, because parents want to protect the kids, so they never talk about it. So now the kid is left with this whole trauma and no way of expressing it or to even make sense of it. So with his or her little brain, she or he tries to make sense of events. How do they make sense of those events? With their little understanding, how will they make sense? Exactly, they interpret it differently. In one case scenario, you identify totally with that one person that you think is a hero or the victim, and the other person is what? The aggressor, right? Then you create this whole thing of, that you create so much hatred towards one of them. And that keeps building and building and building over a period of time. And over a period of time, what happens is you generalize, and we say men are like that. All men. Then even if I don't explicitly say that, I carry that image of a man in my mind. So when I enter into a relationship, no matter how my boyfriend or husband is, the image that I carry is what?
Aggressor.
That aggressor. So any behavior or anything that is done by that other person, maybe that person is doing, but I load it with what? My past and my understanding of this aggressor. Okay, then I behave, and then what is going to be the situation? How is going to be my relationship with that person? Because I have this implicit assumption that this person is an aggressor. Okay, so and therefore it interferes with all my relationships. So that person did it because of what? Their own unresolved issues. Right? Then, and not only that person did it, but I also continue in this whole cause. I continue this whole thing until the time that I recognize, oh my God, we create a legacy, not only of wealth and all, but of confusions, of all unresolved issues, and we just live life and with distortions within distortions within distortions. Okay, there is a second way that the child makes sense of that, and that is sometimes the child, in the vision of child, our teacher used to say, in the vision of child, parents are like gods. They can't do anything wrong. Then the child starts thinking, I am responsible. Okay, I must be doing something wrong. So that means you take on this responsibility which is not your responsibility at all. And then what happens as you grow up, for everything you begin to
Guilt.
that whole guilt you carry within you. And you feel you are responsible. You take on the burdens. People, somebody didn't say hi to me and somebody was a little rude, but you become like, oh, you are totally weighed, and you start imagining all these hundreds of things that you could have done wrong for that person, and you are so disturbed.
Like my child thinks that I am the cause of my mom's diabetes because I give her a lot of tension.
Exactly.
That is how.
That is how, right? So therefore,
Logic.
Rajiv.
Doctor was around.
When I tell him your diabetes, don't eat sweets, he said, yeah, half the problem is you.
I need a little sweetness.
Yeah. So, as far as the causes are concerned, psychology has done a great job in tracing. If this is the cause, this is what you went through in the childhood, this is the personality you will develop if you have not taken care of it. Okay? Now, what is the addition of Bhagavad Gita and Vedas? In addition to that knowledge of psychology, they talk about what we say, that these causes haven't started from this lifetime. They have started from what? Infinite lifetimes before. This is what we call law of karma. This is what we say, there is some amount of prarabdha. So, 1 minute, right? Now, the prarabdha, there are this past causes, means that whoever, what does it actually mean? Whoever is behaving in whichever way today has past causes. Those past causes could be known to me or unknown to me, because there are just too many causes. Okay. Our general conclusion is, if the causes are unknown to me, then what is my conclusion? Life is unfair. But when I stretch it and I say, even when the causes are unknown, it's impossible for me to know all the causes, for let not the other person's behavior, but not only that person's behavior, but even my behavior. Causes within causes, within causes, within causes, within causes, endless causes. Whether they are known to me or not, one very important thing that I understand is life is not unfair. Because if in psychology or in any other thing, when I don't know the causes beyond that, you still feel like a victim. Because when I don't know the causes, it's all just random. And therefore life has been unfair to me. This is the implicit assumption that I have. I am victim of circumstances. There is a resentment. When I stretch it by the thing of karma, I understand that there are so many causes in the universe which I may not even know. But everything that happens in my life or life of anybody else is connected to cause, effect, cause, effect, cause, effect, cause, effect. So that means life is not unfair. There is an inherent law in life. When I understand that, once I have that understanding, unfortunately, people have used this whole thing of karma in a wrong manner. Being fatalistic. Oh, I have to go through it now because this is something the past causes. This is the most unhealthy way of using law of karma.
I still have certain freedom, just like
Exactly. Right? It's amazing how people give messages in form of a law of karma, sometimes sounding wonderful but so irresponsible. Okay, they say that if something is happening which is bad with somebody, then you said, okay, now I have some account to settle, so let more of it happen. And I might as well settle it in this lifetime, so let more of it happen. This is a wrong way of looking at this whole understanding of this cause and effect relationship. The right understanding is, how do you really use karma? Any situation that happens in my life is connected to some causes. It's not just random. Okay? But how I respond to it, it is what? It is in my hand. If I continue to feel like a victim and I am angry, and if I don't understand or deal with that situation, what is going to be the effect in the future? I'm not only continuing but multiplying that confusion. But if I choose to have clarity, and if I behave differently now, what am I doing? The future effects are what? I'm changing the course. Right? Cause and effect means I'm constantly creating new causes which are going to have an effect in the future. So if there is a distortion, either I can continue with that distortion and go deeper into that distortion, or at any given point in time I said, hey, I'm going to make this whole effort of deviating from that past pattern and do things differently. The minute I begin to do that, what do? I change the whole future course of my life. That every little action which is done to undo the distortion and put it in the right perspective will help me to what? Carve a different route. Okay? It is like, a river, and this is what, like the river flows this way and it has a huge force. Then what? If there is kind of a big stone, what will happen? It will deviate. So here, through your thinking and your understanding, you create what? That force will have its force and it will have its tendency. What do? Through your understanding, you create new pathways. And what we are saying is something that neuroscientists have totally confirmed. There is this whole big new research about neuroplasticity. So that means, depending upon what you have understood about life and how you have responded, your neurons have created pathways, links. The minute you re-understand everything and behave differently, over a period of time, those physical wiring changes. You have created new pathways based on your understanding. You have taken, this is what you have to understand from karma, not that, oh, let it happen and I'm a victim and therefore let me have more of it to do away with it. Not at all. That free will that you have, you either can just waste it away and let it be run by the past force, past way of thinking, or you take charge and you begin to see things differently and behave differently, understand things differently, have different attitudes and act differently. That work nobody can avoid, because each one has some distortion or the other, and one's pathways are so well wired that that becomes an automatic response. But you need to think about it, you need to detect it, and you need to change it. And you have to use your free will and your effort. When you begin to use your effort to undo the distortions which have brought all these entanglements in life, you will see how, and in order to undo these distortions, please, the big thing that Vedanta says is understand how the universe operates. The universe, the way it operates is, through series of laws. If I want to live intelligently, I have to understand laws of gravity. I have no choice. Because the laws of gravity will operate. If I don't understand them, and then if I walk out, what will happen? I will fall. But if I understand the very laws of gravity, I will use to send a rocket up. Laws are just laws. This is what Vedanta adds to my whole understanding. That the whole universe is series, is not just a dumb universe. It is a highly intelligent universe which connects all of us in a very intelligent manner. And our lives are all connected through this huge complex web. Of connections that Indra's web I showed you. If you think about just a simple event, you and me meeting, how many causes? Think about the causes. You'll have to invariably go back to your husband because of whom you met me. Then he has to go back to Viresh. Then Viresh has to go back to... So, it's just a simple event. How many things, which are the causes? Factual causes. Network. A huge complex network which we are all part of. Are we the ones who are, can you just ignore that network? It's there. So when you live your life, you have to bring that network in your thinking, in your mind. Otherwise, you're not living, you haven't even understood the world and you're just trying to live in it without even understanding what it is all about. And that network is what we call the cause and effect relationship. This is what we mean by karma. Karma and causes within causes, within causes, within causes, within causes. Some are known to me, some are unknown to me. Okay, but with that understanding, I can say, hey, if I can create new causes today, then it will lead to what? Effects. More responsible causes, more responsible, more enhancing effects. I have to use that to navigate my life. Okay, it is like you find yourself in a flowing river and you're a boatman. Can you say, oh, now I don't care, I'll just go wherever I want? You need to understand which is the flow, in which direction is the flow. And then you also have to use, just that knowing is not good enough. You also need to row your boat to that point where the water will take you. Where you make your effort, but you are aligned with the laws. The minute you are aligned with the laws, every effort that you make is is just easy. Your life will become simple. It's just amazing how much untangling happens. You yourself will.
Because you will immediately react differently to situation. People will not react. People will not make a difference. So you yourself know that. Hey, see how I'm able to avoid this, or
It's your own growth.
it's different. Yeah.
Exactly.
So it is a rational self-analysis.
Exactly. See, otherwise it just becomes like, I have to be kind to everyone. It doesn't have the depth.
But I think when you understand, you automatically become kind.
Exactly. Exactly.
Understood why.
Absolutely.
So you automatically become kind to that person also.
Absolutely. This is what I say. I don't need to give you an advice, be kind. You will automatically become that because you've understood the whole thing. Right? So that means a lot of it is our own confusion. And you may not be able to change others, but you can change your own way of looking at things. That is the only way that you can actually, influence the world.
I read something very simple about this Siddhanta of Prarabdha and Purushartha. Very simple. I think that a cow is tied to a putti. That is just one of the things. And the radius is, let's say, about 10 meters. The cow has that much is charted in her destiny, that radius of 10 meters. But how to graze north, south, east, west, and how far, how close, and how much is given as her choice. So life is also like that. Certain things are given to you. This is a framework in which you have to operate. But how much, when, that is, I think, certain free will is also there. So you cannot say, I'm tired, my hands are tired, I cannot do anything. That's not true. Like certain kind of life and certain kind of work and certain relatives and certain family is given. But then you have to operate within that.
That's true. Right? And what we say is that the human free will is such a gift that with that you can actually solve the whole equation, Tattvamasi. That is the ultimate.
So there is such a confusion in everyone's mind on the human free will and karma.
Exactly.
It is such a hairline difference that to understand it every time when you are in a situation
one cannot understand unless thinking as to what's the free will and what's karma.
So true.
That's why in every situation we
So
do
this
what we
is
can.
where that's why unfortunately this theory of karma, which otherwise is such an important thing, has become like just total fatalistic. Oh yeah, I am going through this because I must have done something. It's not at all how it is supposed to be. No, and then unfortunately people say, yeah, let me have more of it. Oh my God.
That's an Indian theory. That's why they say Indians are one of the happiest people in the world because they just accept as a theory of karma and they let it go on.
So, but that is, you're doing yourself a disservice. I mean, the whole point is not to blame anybody, but to take, use that free will to undo the distortion and start, putting things in place.
Some story of this cobra snake was just lying down or not able to function and he put in stones that he might harming. So somebody said that's not the nature of cobra, He says, but I don't want to harm people, I don't want to be mean to people, I don't want to, I want to just be a nice cobra. So that's not what you do. You just have to show that you can stay so other people don't
Show your fangs.
Abhi jaake.
So we will stop here, right? So this is the way to nirvairaha sarva bhuteshu. Get people out of your mind by dealing. Your mind is free. You deal with freedom and not with this huge load of people, of situations, of everything. That is it is really coloring your own vision. And you think that it's only people who are doing this to you. Okay, so that is something which is, it's everybody's work. And this is how he says, Sarva Bhuteshu. Only when you have freed your mind of all these confusions, your mind is available for what? Mam Eti. That understanding that bigger picture that Vedanta gives about nature of I, nature of the universe, nature of the cause of the universe. When your mind is so entangled, it's just not available to solve that bigger equation. Yes? Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.